So many people make the huge mistake of trying to fix their time management problems by buying a tool. But that's kind of like buying a screwdriver and not really knowing whether you need a Phillips or a flathead. I can have the best tool in the world, but if it doesn't plug into the system that I need to apply, then that tool is fundamentally useless.
Welcome to the Growability Podcast, your home for leadership, management, and marketing education, where we teach business and nonprofit leaders how to flourish in life and work. Do you have the discipline necessary to be a good time manager? What if it was easier than you thought? Today marks the beginning of our new series on time management. Here are your hosts, Joshua McLeod and Bernie Anderson.
Joshua, let's dive in. Why is time management such a big deal?
Bernie, when I think about time management, the first reason is that time management is life management. If you don't manage your time well, you're really not managing your life well. The second reason why time management is really important is because if we have bad time management, we don't enjoy our time. There's a great James Taylor lyric that says, "The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time." If we're good time managers, we enjoy every second just a little bit more. The third reason, Bernie, why I think that time management is so critical, until we become good time managers, we really can't become good career managers. Our career is limited by how well we manage time, and our income is limited by how well we manage time.
Yeah. There's an entire cottage industry around time management, and there's literally billions of dollars that people spend every year to get better at time management. So what that means is that there must be something to this. Maybe if I get better at managing my time, I'll get better at managing my life, and I'll enjoy my life more, and I'll actually be able to make more money. I think we're touching on something here that is sort of at least in the entrepreneurial business world, kind of universal importance.
Bernie, you make a really great point. Growability, we have our own time management system. And that time management system is because there is a very real problem with the way that we manage time, or even knowing how to manage time. But one of the things I want to point out, Bernie, is that there is a huge, huge difference between a time management system and a time management tool. A time management system is a way that you think about time and a way that you organize your time. A time management tool is simply a way to implement that system. So many people make the huge mistake of trying to fix their time management problems by buying a tool. But that's kind of like buying a screwdriver and not really knowing whether you need a Phillips or a flathead. I can have the best tool in the world, but if it doesn't plug into the system that I need to apply, then that tool is fundamentally useless. You cannot solve a time system problem by just buying some new gimmick or tool. You have to first define the system that you're going to use, and then you get tools that will work within your time management system. So that's what I'm excited about, is to share with our listeners, share with our audience how to create a really great time management system.
Yeah, I love that, Joshua. How does Growability categorize time management? What is the Growability system for categorizing time management?
So at Growability, we use 4 different categories for our time management system. The first is a to-don't list. Everybody's heard about the to-do list. The first step in categorizing time management is building a to-don't list. The second is a to-do list. This is the stuff that you do. The third is a to discuss and decide list. These are things that need a discussion and a decision. And then finally, you have the to delegate list. So when I think about task management, with all of the options that come into my inbox on a daily basis or a weekly basis or an hour by hour or minute by minute basis, those things should be categorized as to don't, gonna say no, to do, gonna say yes, to discuss and decide, and to delegate. And what's unique about each of these different categories is I'm using a different discipline or a different mentality, a different mindset for each one of these 4 categorizations.
Yeah. let's pause right there for just a second, Joshua, because what you just said about disciplines for each one of these categories is really interesting to me. Like, let's break that down. What are the disciplines necessary for each of the categories that you just mentioned?
Yeah. So when I think about disciplines, our society has kind of told lies about discipline. We have this idea that discipline creates slavery. Oh, I've got to do this task and it's so terrible. And now I'm going to be a slave to this program, or it's like a diet plan or something like that. Like, we get this idea that discipline is a bad word. You know, if you say discipline, it's like, I don't want to hear that word. Discipline creates freedom. So for example, if I want to be a great jazz musician, I have to implement, or I get to implement, the discipline of practicing music. If I show up to play jazz and I haven't practiced at all, the jazz is not fun. The jazz sounds horrible, and I'm not actually making music. However, if I show up to play jazz and I've been practicing my scales all week and I've been practicing my music, then I can crush the jazz session and fully enjoy and fully be in the moment. So when we think about time management, we want to think about what are the disciplines necessary to accomplish time management. And here's the secret about time management disciplines. They're not that hard. They're actually pretty easy. Most disciplines are actually pretty easy once we make them a habit. So let's break those down. Let's look at each one of these. The discipline of the to-don't list is actually a discipline of pause. I've been really impressed with Abraham Lincoln, looking at his life and how he really managed an entire country in the middle of a civil war that was just unprecedented. And one of the things that fundamentally stood out to me about Abraham Lincoln is that he always paused a day before making any major decisions. Even with like battle plans and really important decisions about Congress and the state, he would always pause before just making a snap judgment or a snap decision. We're not very good at saying no, because we're not very good at pausing before we say yes.
Yeah.
So one of the most important disciplines about creating a to-don't list is the discipline of pause. It's okay to say, let me pause for a second on this. The better that we become at saying, hold on for a second, let me get back to you, the more freedom that we'll have in making great time management decisions in the future. So the discipline for the to-don't list is the pause.
Yeah.
For the to-do list, the discipline for the to-do list is the discipline of priority. If I'm giving my kids an option of what they're going to eat for dinner, and I put out in front of them peas and broccoli and ice cream, they're going to choose the ice cream first. So what I have to do with my to-do list is I don't lay out the ice cream before I've laid out the peas and the broccoli.
Yeah.
Because I want my kid to actually eat the healthy food before they're eating the not healthy food.
Right.
We like to do things first that are the easiest to do. We need the discipline of priority to say, hey, some of these tasks are actually more important than the other tasks. And I have to put them in the right order if I want them to be accomplished.
I'm a people pleaser, Joshua. I have to say yes to everything. I mean, I at least in my history, I'm actually getting much better about this. But in my history as a people pleaser, I'm like, yes, I'll do that. Sure, absolutely. I'll put that on my list. Yeah, I'll work that in somehow. Whoa, that's a poor time management decision. Because I actually should say, I'll get back with you.
I'll get
Let's
back. Wait, let me pause that.
And that's a discipline, right? Like, that's not just like a skill, but it's a discipline. Same with prioritizing. I've got a to-do list and I'm just going to like go and do the first thing on my list. All right. Next thing on my list. All right. Next thing on my list. No, that's actually poor time management.
That's right.
So I think this is really helpful. So, to don't is pause. To do is priority. What is to decide? What's the discipline there?
The discipline for decision, and it's actually not just decision, but it's discuss and decide. The discipline there is perspective. We have a tendency to assume that we're the smartest individual about every task that we decide that we're going to go do.
Yeah.
The discipline of perspective is getting somebody in our decision matrix who might have a different opinion than we do and listening to what they say. We typically like to ramrod through our idea, our opinion, but the discipline to say, you know what, before I make a final decision on this thing that's important, I need to get some other perspective, get some outside voices. And even if I just go through a checklist where I can think through it a little more deeply myself, there's a discipline necessary for discussion and decide where you think about perspective.
And I think listening is a huge part of that, isn't it?
Huge.
I mean, that you just have to, the discipline of perspective means that I'm not looking for affirmation of my point of view. I'm actually looking for other points of view to see how they all are going to mesh with what our goal is, you know?
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. Finally, the discipline necessary to delegate is the discipline of patience. Perhaps the most important thing that any leader can do is learn to delegate well. And perhaps the most important item of delegation is being okay when people drop the ball and fail. To learn to delegate is to learn to be patient.
Yeah.
The beauty of delegation is you're not the one doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The downside of delegation is you're not the one doing it.
That's right.
You have to give people permission to fail and still like them and still get underneath them and still encourage them. It's not going to be done as fast as you can do it. It's not going to be done as well as you can do it. It's not going to be done as beautiful as you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not doing it. Somebody else is doing it. And so there really is a discipline that is necessary, patience. So to don't list, you need the discipline of pause. To do list, you need the discipline of priority. To decide and to discuss list, you need the discipline of perspective. And to delegate, you need the discipline of patience. If we don't pause, if we don't set priorities, if we don't let anybody else add their perspective to the mix, and we're not patient, we're not going to be great time managers, which means we're not going to be great life managers. So all of that is really, really important.
Yeah. As you were talking about patience, I remember long time ago when my daughter was just a little girl, I can remember watching Renee, my wife, teaching her how to make a cake. And of course, I walk into the kitchen and there's like flour everywhere. It's like stuffed cake batter. It's like a mess, you know? And yes, Renee could have done it much faster, much cleaner, like much better. But she's teaching someone how to make a cake. And when you teach someone how to make a cake, it's going to be a mess for a while. Yep. But you know what? My daughter makes awesome cakes now, like awesome cakes, because someone took the time to teach her.
That's right. The power of an individual is just minute compared to the power of a team.
Yes.
Our organizations will never scale until we learn how to empower a team. The first step in empowering a team is patience.
Yeah.
If we become critical instead of like bringing courage, then we'll just shut our team down. I was having a conversation like this with my son, who is 15 years old. And he was like, wait, so that's how you build organizations? And I was like, that is how you build organizations. That's exactly how you build organizations. The brilliant idea has a shelf life.
Yeah.
The dynamic and charismatic leader has a ceiling. But when you can empower a team, that's the key to delegation, which is the key to organizational scaling and growing. Is really effective delegation, which is why we have time management principles for delegation.
I love it. I love it. That's so good. Okay, let me just in summary here, Joshua, so far, we've talked about the categories, which are to don't, to do, to decide, and to delegate. Each of those categories actually need to have a discipline that goes with them. So for to don't, you need to know how to pause.
Right.
To do, you need to know how to prioritize. To decide, you need to have the discipline of perspective. Yep. And to delegate, you need the discipline of patience. So as we head out today, we want to remind you that you are doing better than you think and you have more potential than you know. And we thank you for growing with us today here at Growability. And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Growability Podcast. Did you know that our podcast subscribers are entitled to a free 1-hour consultation with a Growability coach? Simply send an email to info@growability.com with the subject line free session to get started. The mission of Growability is to equip leaders to flourish in their life and work by developing vision, rhythm, and community. Bernie and Joshua are available for speaking engagements, workshops, and conferences. Subscribing to this podcast helps Growability equip leaders throughout the world, and we appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for growing with Growability.